Ayan, sige, let's start. And let's tackle mga Bible verses. So, ito na nga, our opportunity to dig deep or to unravel yung life ni Peter through the Bible. So, in Luke 5, 1 to 11, ito yung calling ni Peter. So, in summary, andun sila sa boat and nakita ni Jesus yung boat ni Peter. Sumakay siya, tapos inutusan niya si Peter na, okay, Peter, let's go to the middle or to the Sea of Galilee, Lake of Gennesaret. Pero Sea of Galilee, same lang naman. And then, sinabi niya na, throw down your nets, sabi ni Jesus kay Peter. And then, eto, sabi ni Simon kay Simon, said to him, eto si Peter to. Sabi niya, pwede ba I ask, volunteer? So, ipabasa ako verse 5.
Okay, so Simon said to him, Teacher, we have worked all night and we have caught nothing. But because you told me to, I will let the net down.
So in here, imagine niyo yung shock ni Peter nung na-realize niya na when they had done this, they caught so many fish that their net started to break. So imagine niyo, Peter is a very, yung work niya as a fisherman, hindi lang naman na nung din tinawag ni Jesus si Peter na doon lang siya naging fisherman. But he has been fishing throughout his life before he met Jesus. And alam mo yun, being an expert of a certain area. Tapos biglang sinabi ng isang tao sa inyo na, wait, dito ka mag-fish. Tapos, yung puzzle look ni Peter na, alam niyo ba, buong night ako nag-fish pero wala akong nakuha. Tapos biglang, boom, may dami ko na nakuha ang fish. Dahil sinabi ni Jesus yun. Tapos dito ito naman reaction ni Simon Peter. Sige, at si Ems, let's call on our mga care group leaders. Pabasa yung underline word dito.
Verse 8, when Simon Peter saw it, he got down at the feet of Jesus. He said, "Go away from me, Lord, because I am a sinful man."
Thank you, Ate Em. So dito na-realize ni Peter that he is with someone very important, someone that is very powerful. That, they na-realize that, go away from me, Lord, because I am a sinful man. And, yun, syempre lahat naman ng tao na nandun, masa-surprise sila yung mga fishermen na kasama ni Peter. Knowing na, alam mo yun, buong night, nagpagod kami, wala kaming nakuha. Tapos biglang, itong somebody na, walang background sa fishing, tinawag kami at sinabi na, itong spot dito kayo mag-fish. Tapos, nag-caught sila ng sobrang daming fish. And in here, we could see that, Peter, before he got to know Christ, eto siya. So let's i-interact natin with you. So let's chat nyo. What was his profession? Sa chat. Before he, first volunteer. Before he, chat yun na lang. What was his profession? Sige, everybody. Para lang interactive tayo. Hello? Wala nag-chat. What was his? Ayan, very good, Free. Ayan, thank you. Ayan, very good. So, he was a fisherman. And then, where did they fish? Ito, saan sa Sea of Galilee, sa may Bethsaida. Ito yung town ni Peter, sa may Bethsaida, and he's fishing dito sa Sea of Galilee. So, in here, when nung ni-research ko siya, ang nangyari pala during their time, fishes from this lake or this sea is considered a Roman delicacy. So yung mga fish na nakuha dito, daw siya? Masarap siyang fish. Pero siya, tilapia. Yun yung term nila dun sa fish. St. Peter's fish. So, pero the Romans during their time considered this to be a delicacy, yung itong fish na to. Okay. And then, rin siya, yung work nila nito sa mga fishermen, when they fish this, yung mga fishes, in-export nila. So, yun yung parang job nila Peter during their time. And then next sa tingin niyo ba as a fisherman, was he strong or was he, able-bodied? Na-imagine niyo ba yung mga fisherman natin? Was he, physically able? Dapat, di ba? Dapat. Opo, sabi ni Christian. Nice. So in here, naisip ko lang din that, he's been fishing all of his life before he met Jesus. And this is my first point. Before he met Jesus, the professional Peter was physical. So he was physically built, his body, and that his work, being a fisherman during their time, is considered a professional work. So that's my first point, that Peter, before he met Jesus, the professional Peter was very physical. So now let's move on to during his time. Yun na nga, tinawag na ni Jesus si Peter. Sabi niya yan, di ba sinabi nga niya na, come and follow me. So ito na siya. They've been journeying with Jesus. And sa tingin nyo, ano-ano yung mga, let's go through na lang. Yung mga highlight ni, are you familiar with this? Jairus' daughter was raised from the dead. Hindi siya masyado sikat, pero this is one of the two, tama ba yan, Jerry? Twice lang na nag-raise si Jesus from the dead ng tao. So isa si Lazarus, tapos yung pangalawa is ito, yung daughter ni Jairus. And the highlight of this thing is nung verse 37, kung pansin, sige ako na lang magbasa. Sabi dito, he did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. So, nakita niya yung sinasabi ni Ate Ems kanina about Peter being one of the core disciple of Jesus. Ayun, makita natin yung exclusivity, makita natin that Peter was really well-loved and he was one of the disciples na inaalagaan ni Jesus, mina-mentor niya. And then, yung next naman, ayan nga, nagkaka-commotion dito that he's dead, ganyan. But they laugh at him and even di sila naniniwala na kaya ni Jesus ibuhay yung daughter ni Jairus. To the point na yung verse 42, nung sinabi ni Jesus that in little girl, ayan, talita kum, which means little girl, I say to you, get up. Immediately, the girl stood up and began to walk around. At this, syempre lahat ng tao magagulat. But he gave strict orders to let anyone know about this. And ayun nga, this is one of the first mga miracles na na-encounter ni Peter firsthand. The second is, ayan, Jesus walks on water. So many times dito, no, yung na-highlight dito was, natakot sila ganyan. But, ito, yung sinasabi ni Ahia kanina na, si Peter, yung, characteristic niya, he was very OA, he was very bold, he was very charismatic, to the point na, alam mo yun, challenge niya lahat, ganyan. So, sige, at si Dayan, pwede ako pabasa ng underlined verse dito.
Lord, if it is you, Peter replied, tell me to come to you on the water.
So, thank you, Ate Dayan. So, in here, we could see that, Peter was one of the few disciples that is very charismatic. And, ayun, sinabi niya kay Jesus, no, when he saw, akala nila ghost, ganyan. So, sinabi ni Jesus na, uy, this is, sabi ni Peter sa kanya na, Lord, pag ikaw yan, kaya ko din parang, tell me to come to you on the water. So, imagine yun, Peter was also walking on water. Wow, Peter, a human being was walking on water. But, ayun nga, after nun, sige, Ahia James, pabasa ng verse 30.
Verse 30, but
Yes.
when he saw the wind, he was afraid and beginning to sink, cried out, Lord, save me.
So this is the Peter that we knew na, ayun nga, very charismatic. But when the waves come and the winds came, ayun, nagkaroon siya ng takot, which is a very human response. Na yun, nag-sink siya. And yun, pinagigitan siya ni Jesus na, you have little faith, he said, why did you doubt? Si Jesus. Another encounter with Peter was that, ito isa sa mga sikat din na ginawa ni Peter. Sabi niya dito sa underliner, tinatanong Jesus sa disciples niya. Ay, marami kasi nagsasabi na, or mga parang rumors kung sino ba si Jesus, ganyan. But, Simon Peter, ayan, sige, let's ask. Si Razo, carry group. Hello, Razo. Sorry. Verse 16.
Verse 16.
Verse 16. Ayan, ito, naka-underline.
Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God.
And thank you, Rainiel. So in here, we could see that Jesus was very masaya dun sa answer ni Peter. Because, sabi dito sa verse 17, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And ito na nga, yung sinabi ni Schwabe kanina, about nung tinanong ko si Peter, sinabi niya rock. And ito yung verse na nagsasabi that, ito na yun, let's ask. Sige, tawag tayo na Atsi. Atsi Maria, can you read verse 18?
Verse 18. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it.
Yes, thank you, Atsi. So in here, we could see that, as Peter was growing with Jesus, his mindset, his mentality, syempre, nagmamature din in the faith with Jesus. And kita nga sa verse na to that Peter knows that Jesus is the Messiah. The next was, ito, sa Matthew chapter 16 naman. Let's ask Atsilala. Atsilala, ito ang verse 22. Yan.
Verse 22, Peter
Yes.
took him aside and began to rebuke him. Never, Lord, he said, this shall never happen to you.
So, thank you, Atsilala. So, from here, no, ito to Matthew, kung balik tayo sa last slide, ayun, Matthew 16, 13 to 20, ito yung nangyari. Right, 13 to 19. Then, pagdating sa next, few verses lang, magkasunod na nangyari, in-explain niya kay Peter na, sa disciples niya na, mamamatay siya in the end. Pero si Peter, bilang isang, yun nga yung characteristic niya, sabi niya, Lord, wag, hindi ito mangyari sa'yo. Hinahayaan niya. Sabi niya, wag, ganyan. But, hindi alam ni Peter yung pinapasukan niya or sinasabi niya. And dito, ayun, let's ask si Monica, I see. Verse 23.
Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns."
So, ito na, pinagalitan ni Jesus si Peter. And next story naman sa kanya was that, ito, isa sa mga, the Transfiguration of Jesus. So, this is a scene where yung ni-reveal na ni God, yung, parang, yung essence ni Jesus being God as well. So in here, after 6 days, ito ulit, yung Jesus took with him si Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. So may natin na close talaga si Peter with Jesus. And ito nga, while he was speaking, verse 5, si God, ito na, ni-reveal niya si Jesus as his son. A bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my son whom I love, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." And syempre, yung mga disciples, natakot ganyan. But Jesus came and touched them. "Get up," he said, "and don't be afraid." So from here, we could see that Peter encountered yung highlight that nakita niya or na-witness na yung Transfiguration of Jesus. And then the next, naman, ito, last two. Ito, isa rin sa mga sikat na Peter cuts the ear of the soldier. Ito naman yung scene na to. Ito na yung si Judas dumating. Tapos kasama na yung mga guards, mga Pharisees, mga Sadducees. Huhuli na nila si Jesus. And then, nung hinuli na siya, huhuli na si Jesus. Si Peter, yun nga, being his, yung bold, ganyan. Kumuha siya ng sword, tapos kinat niya yung ear nung manghuli kay Jesus. And, ayun, pinagalitan ulit siya ni Jesus. "Put away your sword," sabi niya. "Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" And yung last naman na very famous is, imagine nyo, Peter was, yung scene na to, very bold siya in defending Jesus. Pero at the same time, dineny niya, Peter denies Jesus. Ito yung may rooster na sinasabi niya na, sabi ni Jesus kay Peter na, when the rooster crows 3 times, you will deny me. And yun nga, nangyari nga siya. That, dahil sa takot, dahil sa fear, dahil sa pressure ng tao, but he denied, saying, "Woman, I do not know him." Si Jesus sinasabi niya, hindi niya kilala si Jesus. And a little later, someone else also saw him and said, "You are one of them." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." Ito ulit, deny niya ulit yung pangatlong beses. "Man, I do not know what you're talking about." And immediately, while he was speaking, the rooster crowed. So in here, we could see, ito nga, yung mga life ni Jesus. No? Ayan, Peter was a born leader. He was confident. He was close with Jesus. He was bold. He was overacting. And sinamarize ko lahat ng, discuss natin kanina. He saw the daughter of Jairus being raised. He experienced walking on water with Jesus. He declared that Jesus is the Messiah. Jesus rebuked Peter. He witnessed the Transfiguration of Jesus. He cuts the ear of the soldier, and then he denied Jesus. So we could see here, during the time na he was with Jesus, the pressured Peter was premature. So we could see here that, nasabi kanina nung tinanong ko that, kung sino man may kilala kay Peter, one of you said that he was a leader of disciples. And ayun nga, during this time when he was with Jesus, ayun, we could see here that he was being, he was learning at the same time. He was yun na yung mga actions niya shows that he was premature during this time, right? So the pressured Peter was premature. And then the next naman, let's tackle the situation when Peter denied Jesus. And yun nga, namatay na si Jesus, and after 3 days, he rose again from the dead. And then makikita natin yung redemption ni Peter, no? So let's review first, no? Kung maalala nyo, how did Jesus call Peter? Was these 3 words. He said, after nga, di ba, na kinas nila yung nets, tapos nagulat sila. Sa verse 19, sabi ni Jesus sa kanya, "Come, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Ito yung tinatawag ni Jesus si Peter. And then, ito na, nung dinay, ito, tandaan ito, "Come, follow me." Ito. And then, tapos yung dinay na ni Peter si Jesus, nandito tayo sa scene na, ayan, afterwards, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. So dito ulit sila nag-meet. It happened this way, that Simon Peter and the 2 other disciples were together. Ayan, they were fishing. Sabi, balik ulit sila sa, something na alam nilang gawin. Kasi nga, nawala na yung leader nila. Sabi ito, "I'm going out to fish." And Simon Peter told, and they said, "We'll go with you." So, pumunta sila. And they got into the boat, but that night, they caught nothing again. When they had finished eating, ito na, Jesus said to Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than this?" And ito na yung, andito na yung reconciliation, and ito na yung redemption na ni-remind ni Jesus si Peter. Ayan, sabi niya, "You know that I love you," sabi ni Peter. Sabi ni Jesus, "Feed my lambs." Again, Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." The pangatlong beses ulit. The third time, he said this to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, "Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Feed my sheep. Very true, I tell you, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go." Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. Then he said to him, "Follow me." So we could see here na, yun nga after Peter denied Jesus, makita natin yung reaction niya, na hurt siya, alam niya mali yung ginawa niya, depressed siya, na-sad siya, nagkaroon siya ng anxiety. Ito nga, natin. And he went out and wept bitterly after niya dineny si Jesus. And he realized it na mali yung ginawa niya. The confident, talong beses yung confident, born leader is now facing a battle within himself. And the Peter who always strives in challenges, syempre ba, bold siya, ganyan, shrunk during that situation. So you could see here that the problematic Peter was progressing. Dahan-dahan siya ngayon na natututo from his experiences, from his yun yung mga situations na experience niya. Tapos lalo na nung kinausap na siya ni Jesus, doon na nag-sink in yung kanyang calling, yung kanyang divine purpose. Doon niya na-realize na ito na yung dapat kong gawin. And doon niya na-redeem yung forgiveness. Doon niya na-feel yung forgiveness ni God. Doon din niya naramdaman yung assurance na yung ginawa niya mali and forgive na siya ni Jesus. And after that, ito na, three things na i-highlight ko na after Jesus went back, yun nga, umakyat na siya sa heavens. This is what Peter did. It may not, ito mga highlight lang, pinili ko, tatlong highlight. The first was the healing of Aeneas. So in here, there was a paralyzed man, and Peter said to him, "Ananias, Jesus Christ heals you. Get up, make your bed," and immediately he got up. So we could see here that Peter was able to heal a paralyzed man with with the help of Jesus. And he found a man who had been bedridden for 8 years, for he was paralyzed. And we could see here, Peter was able to, do miracles too with the power of Jesus. And nandun visible yung calling niya. The next would be, Peter in Lydia and Joppa. So, ito si Tabitha. Ito yung person na to. Patay ito. And Peter was able to raise him from the dead. Peter put all of them outside, then he knelt down and prayed. He turned to the body and said, Tabitha, get up. Then she opened her eyes, and seeing Peter, she sat up. And ayun, we could see here that and this became known throughout Joppa, and many believed in the Lord. And through Peter, we could see here that yung sinasabi ni God sa kanya that the church will be built through him. Ayan. Ginagampanan niya yung role niya being a preacher. He was bold in sharing Jesus Christ. And the next would be the first non-Jew Christian. So ito si Cornelius to. Si Cornelius to. Ito yung whole family ito nagkaroon pa ito ng controversy because during their time, they believed that the Jews were the only one who could be saved. But Peter, on the other hand, was used by God to share the gospel not only to the Jews but also to the Gentiles. Dito rin niya nagkaroon siya ng vision about eating yung unclean foods, yung may 2 feet na animals tsaka 4 feet. So in here, verse 34, then Peter began to speak. I now realize how true it is that God does not show favoritism, but accepts from every nation the one who fears him and does what is right. And the word of God was well known through the life of Peter. And then last point, diba? He healed a layman, was able to raise a dead person to life, and the non-Jews can be Christian. The preacher Peter was very passionate. So to summarize the talk, in the life of Peter, the professional Peter was very physical. The pressured Peter was premature. And then the problematic Peter was progressing. And finally, when he knew his passion and yung calling niya kay God, the preacher Peter was very passionate. And hopefully after this short talk, and when you go to your care groups, i-relate natin yan sa life natin. So the first one is to reflect on your life, what had been before you got to know Christ. Diba? Just like Peter, he was a fisherman, hindi niya kilala si Jesus. But when Jesus called him, come, follow me, he was able to respond. And was there any significant changes in your lifestyle when you knew who Jesus is, when he entered into your life? And the next is, what aspects in your life is still a work in progress? We could see how Peter was progressing, although he was with Jesus. Nagkakaroon pa siya ng mga pagkakamali, mga maling ginagawa, maling sinabi, maling actions. But God was guiding him, was rebuking him, was mentoring him. And at the last days ng life niya, he realized that yung passion niya. And the last question would be, what aspects of your life do you want to be passionate about for Christ? And hopefully, as young as you are, you may be able to realize na, ito yung, although hindi ko alam kung naiisip niyo ba siya, yung calling niyo, although everyone is called to share the gospel, right? And sana take this time to reflect on these 4 verses, and with the help of your care group leaders, hopefully you get a better grasp of life, of what Jesus had done sa life ni Peter. And hopefully you too can see the changes that God has made sa life niyo. And that is it for this sharing of the life of the Apostle Peter.